to the Register's report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. This show is about Plymouth County real estate. We're reporting on the December numbers in the January show, the December recordings at the Registry of Deeds. In the second segment of the show, we'll have a great guest, a first-time home buyer, to talk about her experiences. And last but not least, we'll talk about county and colony history. So let's go right to the numbers. The first chart you're going to see is of deeds of sales of property. There were 701 deeds in December, more than the 664 in November, 29% less than last year, and year-to-date down 17%. You're going to see an image of sales for all 27 communities, from Abington to Whitman. Every community had sales of property. Plymouth and Brockton had the highest number. You're going to see a chart about mortgages. Mortgages are the documents that have had the biggest decline. There were 1,300 mortgages recorded in December, more than 1,205 in November, but down 58% compared to the 2,714 mortgages in December 21. Year-to-date, with mortgages, were down 47%. We always follow foreclosures very carefully, particularly since the meltdown in 2008. There were only 9 foreclosure deeds in December, same as 9 in November, but 25% more than the 5 foreclosure deeds in December of 2021, and 37% year-to-date. During the COVID period, there was a moratorium on filing foreclosure deeds, so the numbers are bumping up, nowhere near where they were during the years of trouble, 2008, 2009. What you have seen a little bit of an uptick in is foreclosure notices. A foreclosure notice is the first document we see when someone's in trouble before a foreclosure deed. Foreclosure deed is when they take back the property. So if you find yourself in trouble, reach out to a federal housing council as soon as you can. There were 45 foreclosure notices in December, 45 also in November, 150% more than the 30 notices last December, and 115% higher year-to-date. I'm going to show you a list of foreclosures in orders of notice by community, again from Abington to Whitman. As you can see, Brockton has the highest number of foreclosure notices, followed by Plymouth, and hopefully those don't turn into foreclosure deeds. So be aware of potential scams on your property. There are a lot of people that will try to take advantage of your home being an asset to you. There's a free property fraud alert on our website. You can sign up for it. If you go to the PlymouthDeeds.org website and go to resources and then click on property fraud alert, if you put it in your email, if something gets recorded on your property, you'll get an email back that shows that something has been recorded. Maybe it's something that should have been recorded, like a discharge for paying off your mortgage. But it's a great way to protect yourself. Also be aware there are companies out there that try to get you to pay a lot of money, $50, $80, $90 for a copy of your deed. If you go to one of our offices, you can get it for $1 a page. And this being National Handwriting Week, I want to mention how difficult it is for people to understand handwriting, particularly since a lot of people aren't learning cursive. We have this great program we've been working on to transcribe the cursive writing into typewritten. We've gone from 1685 to 1861, and we'll continue to do that. So My guest on the show today is Callahan, who's going to talk about the experience of a first-time home buyer. We'll see you in the next segment. Welcome back to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. In this segment of the show, we always do something educational in nature. We've had commercial brokers, a lot of commercial lenders, home lenders, appraisers, assessors, a lot of realtors, and we've always talked about the importance of getting first-time home buyers into the market. So it was a great suggestion when one of those realtors suggested to me, I know a first-time home buyer, and I have this guest on my show, Ian Callahan. Ian, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You are a first-time home buyer, and you're obviously the type of person we want to see get into the housing market. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience and how you decided to be a homeowner?
Yes, I recently bought a house this summer. It's very exciting. It's always been a goal of mine to own a home. I've always been more interested in owning a home than renting. I know that it's a better long-term investment. So I took the time to save up, was looking for about a year. All around, I had a wide range of where I was looking and put in some offers on some homes, and I found this one, and I'm very happy to be in it.
Yeah, we always promote private property ownership, and realtors have come in many times talking about the benefits of home ownership versus paying rent.
Yep.
It's a wealth builder. You build up equity in owning your property, and so it's great to hear that you made that choice, smart choice.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about how you began your steps towards the eventual purchase.
Yes.
So did you have to get a pre-approval letter? And
I did, yes. I worked with a lender to get pre-approved, and she told me kind of how much I could afford and what I could be looking at. So I knew that, well, first, that was the point where I realized it's attainable comparing it to the cost of rent now. So I started searching, and I had a great relationship with her over the course of the year. I would find a house and send it to her, and she would run the numbers of, you know, what the monthly payment would be and the mortgage and interest. Yeah, so sorry, I forgot the first part of your question.
No. So how many properties did you actually look at before you purchased?
Quite a few. I mean, I was on MLS, so I would get emails constantly and just looking at them virtually and going to open houses. I put an offer on a couple that I lost, but I think it was still a great experience, and it's to be expected that you might not get your first offer. So yeah, that was a good experience to go through that.
Yeah, there are certainly people that get disappointed
Yes.
when their first offer is not accepted, and I've heard of people going to 7 or 8 different properties and made offers and just have not been accepted, and every one they get their heart set on.
Yes.
And then you have to, because you're looking for it to be a long-term connection with you, and then it just doesn't work out. Somebody comes in, bids over asking price or other reasons, and I know it can be very disappointing. But you hung with it.
Yes, it's definitely easy to get very excited, and I went through that. But like I said, I do think it's a good opportunity, and this was at a point where interest rates were really low.
Okay.
So people were putting in over 20 offers on homes. Wow. So I kind of had that expectation, and knew not to get too attached, but I knew if it wasn't meant to be, it wouldn't be, and it worked out.
So what was the most challenging part of the whole process for you?
Probably just the market. Prices were really low, which meant people were offering way over the asking. Mm-hmm. So I would put in my best offer, and if I was outbid, then I was outbid. But it was really just kind of knowing that the listing price, it would probably be sold for a lot more than that.
Yeah, clearly, what is available on the internet for looking at properties is 10,000% better than it was even
Yeah.
20 years ago. The ability to look into the house, look at the neighborhood from the
Yes.
sky, and all those kinds of things but it also means everyone else is looking at it
Yes.
easily. So it adds competition. Does give you information, but it adds competition.
Yes, exactly. And I think you can even see the views on some of those platforms.
So once you had your offer accepted, what happened then?
So after the offer was accepted, we had, sorry, I'm blanking.
Home inspection?
An inspection.
Home
Yes,
inspection.
thank you. We did have a home inspection, which I knew was really important.
Yeah.
I could tell by looking at the photos what condition it was in, but I wanted to have a professional walk through and check as much as they could. And it did come out pretty well. We knew that there were some things that would have to be addressed right away, so we worked through that.
Yeah, I do 2 cable shows a month, like I told you, one in Plymouth last week, and I had a home inspector on the show as my guest. And he tells me of all the frustrating times when people bought homes without a home inspector.
Oh, yes.
And then they had to call them in after the fact
Yes.
to identify all the problems. So
Yep.
clearly, I agree with you
Yeah,
that it's certainly a great step to protect yourself and understand what you're getting into.
definitely. Yep.
And how many conditions did they have to fix before you bought the property from your home inspection?
Well, it was in really good shape in terms of it had a newer roof, the
Okay.
windows were newer, so I knew it had the real basics that it needed to last. We had to replace the entire heating system, which was an expense.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So of everything you did, what was the most interesting to you going through that process?
Well, for me, it was probably once I had the keys, I could I
It
could
was
get
yours,
to
yeah.
to painting,
Yeah.
and it did need some work before I moved in. I had some painters come in and paint the outside and the inside. I refinished the hardwood floors, which at the time felt like a really big project, but it made sense to do it then before I was in with furniture and everything else.
So assuming there are potential home buyers out there, particularly first-time home buyers, what are the top 3 things you would tell them to do to prepare for that?
I would say, well, number one is focusing on saving if you can for the down payment. Focus on getting pre-approved and figure out what your range could be, and make sure that you have good credit.
Great. That's great advice. Any warnings or other things you might want to talk about?
So what I found really exciting about the process is, and maybe this is my design background, but I was able to see the potential in houses and kind of what to look out for. So like you said, looking virtually, there's a lot more detail that you can see now. But don't let a little bit of paint scare you away from a project, because I think we can keep things, it doesn't have to be a full renovation, but you can do small things to really brighten up the space and make it feel clean and new.
And you took on a pretty big project once you get in there.
Yep.
If you changed over the heating system.
Yes, I did. That was definitely a big project.
Great. Well, thank you very much for sharing your experience.
Thank you.
I'm glad to have you on the show, and have a good rest of the winter.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You too.
Welcome back to the Register's Report. Again, my name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. I want to thank Ian Callahan for the great job she did in discussing the issues that she went through in becoming a first-time home buyer. We talk about first-time home buyers all the time as being integral to the market in our future market. So it was really good to hear from her perspective, her ideas and recommendations in the process she went through to become a first-time home buyer. In this segment of the show, we always do something lighter in nature, some of our great county and colony history, The holidays for the month were New Year's Day on the 1st, National Milk Day on the 11th, Martin Luther King Day on the 16th, Chinese New Year on the 22nd, International Day in Memory of Holocaust Victims on the 27th, National Hot Chocolate Day on the 31st. So let's go right to one of our notable land records. Our land records can tell the story of our country and our area. There's a place in Bridgewater, in the Bridgewater Town Common. It's a historical 2-story wooden building known as the Tory House. It originally was built by a fellow, Jacob Leonard, and it got its name because it was owned by a Tory sympathizer. Back in those days, there was a division between who still supported the crown, and who supported the revolutionary group in the war of 1776. This fellow had loyalty to the crown, angered his fellow townsmen, and was forced to leave town. Property had multiple purposes since then, but it's very important because it was a stop on the Underground Railroad. There was a recent story in the Boston Globe magazine about the Crafts. William and Ellen Craft were escaped slaves. They were unique in the way they escaped in 1848 because Ellen, who was lighter skinned, posed as a man with William as her slave. They escaped by train, worked their way up, remained in Boston after they got through Bridgewater, but they were housed on a stop in the Underground Railroad in the town of Bridgewater, where people assisted runaway slaves. There is a historical marker on the side of the building describing its past. So it's Milk Day this month, and we figured we'd tell the story of the Skim Milk Bridge. It's an old historical bridge crossing the town river between Bridgewater and West Bridgewater. It's on a discontinued road, Old Maple Street, right off of Elm Street. You can park at a spot out front and walk back about 3/4 of a mile to the Skim Milk Bridge. It's really a beautiful spot to go to. It was a dry stone constructed bridge built without mortar. It's the largest stones were transported by oxen pulled by sleds in the winter. The bridge received its name because there was white silt and clay particles in the river bottom that when the water was going through that area, it churned up fine white coloring that looked like skim milk. It was discontinued by the Plymouth County Commission when a new road was built, but it can be reached easily. It's part of the Hasiotos Mass Wildlife Trail, and a small parking area is available on Scotland Street. It's part of the Bay Circuit Trail in the Nuncatusset Greenway. Last but not least, from our county notable records, was a fellow by the name of Dewey Stone. We do famous places and people. Dewey Stone was a Brockton industrialist, was a leader of the Brockton Jewish community. He served as a sergeant major in World War I, and then he graduated from BU and began working in his family's Converse Rubber Company. But he was very active in the Jewish community, and he helped fund the ship Exodus, which brought Holocaust survivors from France to Palestine. But he was very friendly with Harry Truman, President Harry Truman's business partner. Harry Truman had been a haberdasher. He sold hats before he was president, and his business partner came to Harry Truman and said, you know, we really need to take a role in the founding of Palestine. And he convinced Harry Truman to do that. Stone was a founder of the Weizmann Institute of Science, and the Stone Science Building at BU is named after him and his brother, Judge Harry Stone. Last but not least is one of our colony records. It's an interesting one. In 1646, the Colonial Court ordered that anybody that owned a victualling or ordinary, basically a barroom or a tavern, had to make sure people didn't get drunk while on premise. If they did, they had to pay a fine, the owner of the tavern, as well as the person who got drunk. Right in the Colonial Record, it talks about how you have to pay attention to the people in your establishment well before the Alcoholic Beverage Commission, and they judged it by whether you had lips, falters in your speech, or staggered, or vomits going forward due to excessive drinking. And you were also fined for any of those. If you couldn't pay the fine, you would have to be put in the stocks for that penalty. You'll find that in the Book of Laws, page 48, in the Colonial Records in 1648. I want to thank Lorna Green Baker and Christine Richards for helping me do this show, my 147th show at PAC TV. I want to thank the folks here at PAC TV, Emma Reardon, and other staff on site that did the work to get this job produced. Athena Grant was helping earlier today. I want to thank the local providers throughout Plymouth County for sharing this information with people. So I hope you have a great beginning of the winter, and we'll see you next month. Thank you.